Throughout the course of this series, I've tackled the concept of a timeline for the Sonic franchise, from streamlined events to multiple timelines to split-dimensional timelines. I've even dabbled in the idea of there being two Blaze the Cats before the concept of her being sent to another dimension in 2006 came across my desk. But now, there's an official timeline for the official Sonic channel called the Sonic World Story, and I have to say, I was at least 95% correct on my theories. While it does not list every game, it lists every major event from the creation of the planet, the Ancients, Babylon, Dark Gaia, and every world-changing event caused by the constant battle between Sonic and Eggman. So what about the 5% difference? What about my timeline differs from the one that Sega put out? Well, it's missing several games that introduced characters that would appear later, such as Sonic Triple Trouble and Knuckles Chaotix. The entire 8-bit library is omitted, which makes sense as many were parts and spin-offs with little to no story involvement, and the rival games are missing, which is the only canonical introduction to Sonic the Hedgehog ever since the timeline split from his future in 2006. Also, Sonic Shuffle is a canon event, and so is Sonic Freeriders, despite it having the same plot as Team Sonic Racing, minus Eggman's bad disguise. So with this timeline, where would every other event and character introduction fit in? Well, here's the thing. Not much needs to be changed, especially for the classic era of Sonic. My timeline of the classic era seems to fit into a cohesive chronology. As far as the Sonic Drift games that I omitted last time, they could take place anywhere between Triple Trouble and Mania. The same goes for every other game between them. Some games refer to others such as Labyrinth and Sky Patrol, but as long as every character gets introduced before their reintroduction in more recent games. But it's the adventure to modern times that has me scratching my head as to where most of the games go in this timeline. So far, Sonic's World Story has left out Sonic Advance, Rivals, Secret Rings, Rivals 2, and Black Knight. I considered adding Sonic Chronicles to the mix of forgotten games, but considering how much of a hissy fit Penders threw about the game's story and characters, and the fact that it was developed by a third party, let's pull a Nintendo in regards to its two recent Zelda titles and place it in its own continuity. And it's not because it ends on a cliffhanger with no conclusion in sight, because Sonic 4 Episode 2 ended on a cliffhanger as well, and somehow that is canon and takes place before Sonic Adventure. Sonic and the Black Knight is the easiest to place. At the end of the game, Amy gets mad at Sonic for forgetting their date. The only time Sonic could have promised her a date is in Sonic Unleashed before the final battle against Eggman in his newly constructed theme park Eggman Land. So that slots in right after that game. Sonic and the Secret Rings would obviously take place before Unleashed, but the question is whether or not this Tale of Tales took place before or after his running with the Babylon Rogues and Eggman's scheme to harness the power of the Ark to the Cosmos. With how open-ended the games are, I'm going to say this takes place prior to Zero Gravity and after Sonic Rush Adventure. Sonic Advance is a tough one. There's not really a story that could link it to any other game than Sonic Adventure, which it took inspiration from. You could argue it takes place before the events of Adventure 2, but Tails flies the tornado in Sonic Advance, which was destroyed by the Egg Carrier. The only way for this to make sense chronologically is that it isn't canon, or it takes place before Sonic Adventure, bridging the gap between it and Sonic 4. Finally, there are the two rival games, and this is where I have an issue with the timeline. I joked earlier about there being two Blaze the Cats, only because it doesn't make sense for her to be from another dimension in one game, then the future in the next. If the intention was for her to be from the future and have her entire history rewritten in another dimension in a time parallel to Sonic's rather than Silver's 200 years in the future, then why does Sonic Rush take place before the altered events of Sonic the Hedgehog 2006? If the Iblis timeline still exists, why doesn't Sonic recognize Blaze? They literally saved their two dimensions from two megalomaniacs not too long ago. The reason why I'm going off on this is because of Eggman Nega. He appears in both series from both locations. Canonically, Eggman Nega is from the future and has his interactions with Blaze in her dimensions enough times to form a distaste for each other. For this to make any sense, Eggman has to have no interaction with him before contacting him in the Soul Dimension. Luckily, Eggman seems to be completely unaware of Egg Nega's existence in Rivals, who is disguised as Eggman carrying around a camera that can capture any object including Amy and Tails. The only people who know of Eggman Nega's existence are Shadow and Silver. It makes the most sense to place Sonic Rivals after 2006 as a replacement to Silver's introduction. I know it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for him to abandon Eggman after failing to secure 2 sets of emeralds, to suddenly try to destroy the future by capturing the planet in a card, then back to Eggman once he discovers the Jeweled Scepter, then finally trying to destroy the future again by summoning Ifrit after sacrificing a bunch of Chow. But in Sonic Rivals 2, Eggman is aware of Eggman Nega by seeing and communicating with Shadow through Metal Sonic, so Rivals 2 can easily be slotted in after the events of Sonic Rush Adventure, but more than likely after the events of Zero Gravity, where Eggman goes into hiding after his company, Mediatek, went under. And that wraps up all the missing games from Sonic's world story. Yes, it's still missing more recent titles such as the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic Dream Team, but those can be added after the end of Sonic Frontiers. Which ending to Sonic Frontiers? Who knows? So what do you think? Does this more complete timeline make sense? What would you change and where would you place the missing games from this timeline? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like this video if you did and subscribe for future videos. And if you really enjoyed this video, consider hitting that super thanks button below. It's a great way to show some love and keep the content coming. And if you want some exclusive perks such as early access or teasers for upcoming videos, consider becoming a YouTube member. Links in the description below. As always, I'm Sonicguru, and I'll see you all next time.